I 32 male was married to my ex-wife 29 female for 3 years. We were madly in love, but unfortunately, our marriage couldn't work because of her infidelity. The first time my ex-wife and I met was on a dating site. As of that time, I was desperately looking for someone to settle down with because I was tired of being lonely, and she came around at the right time. So, after meeting each other physically for the first time, we had more dates, and as we got to know ourselves better, we fell deeply in love. Our relationship started as a very beautiful one. We used to hang out every weekend, spend quality time with each other, and do fun stuff together. But after about a year of dating my wife, I noticed she had anger issues. At first, her anger issues started as nagging and making mountains out of molehills. Then it got so bad that she would break stuff whenever she was angry. Then once she became calm again, she would apologize and cry for forgiveness. When I noticed this bad attribute, I wanted to break up with her. But each time she begged me, I would forgive her only for the same thing to repeat itself. There was even a time I was so close to breaking up with her because she had an altercation with my mom. One time she came to visit me, but because she had enrolled for anger management classes, and I saw a bit of improvement, I forgave her. All this while, I didn't know I was shooting myself in the leg, and marrying her was one of my mistakes. When most people tell stories of how they enjoyed the first years of their marriage, I can't relate to that because the first 2 years of my marriage were filled with fights and arguments. My wife had multiple personalities. One day, she would be all loving and lovely. The next day, she would be so angry over little things she shouldn't be angry about. Aside from the anger issues my wife had, she was a sweet and hardworking wife. She took care of me and my needs in the house too. She also worked for a big organization in the town we lived in, so in terms of finances, she was earning more. Despite earning more, we split the bills equally, and we both took care of our responsibilities. I think I kept holding on to my wife and believed she would change because she was putting in a lot of effort to be a better person, and I wanted to support her. I also knew she grew up in a toxic and abusive environment, and how she was raised contributed greatly to her anger issues. Whenever she did something terrible or broke something, I wanted to leave her, but I couldn't. We had a lot of beautiful memories together, and I didn't want to judge her based on her bad side alone. She also kept telling me that I was the only guy who had stuck with her in both the good and bad times. None of her relationships worked in the past because all the men she dated kept leaving her. I wanted to be the good husband who would stick to his marital vows of for better for worse, and fortunately, the relationship between my wife and I started getting better in the 3rd year of our marriage. Months after our 2nd anniversary, I noticed that the relationship between my wife and I had improved so much. She no longer argued and fought over everything, which was a big step up for us. Initially, I thought that she was getting better at controlling her anger because of the new therapy she was getting. Also, it didn't just stop with the improvement in our communication. My wife began to act like a totally different person. For example, she often complained about work when she returned from the office, but that changed. Instead, she would come home and tell me how she was finally getting along with her colleagues in her organization. Aside from that, she became more cheerful and everything seemed to change about her. Honestly speaking, all the changes I noticed for months were because of her anger management therapy sessions, and I even went as far as dropping a great review and a 5-star on her therapist's website. It felt so good to have peace in my marriage and hold a conversation for a whole day without ditching plates. Out of happiness, I even told my friends about her improvement, and they were so happy for me. On the other hand, when my wife's anger issues improved, she became so engrossed with work around the same time, which did not allow us to get as close as I wanted. Despite her busy work schedule, I never complained because it was better for her to be calm and engrossed with work than constantly fighting and complaining about work. While I was innocently and wholeheartedly happy for my wife, I didn't know she was doing the unthinkable behind me. The day I found out, I returned home, and my parrot started saying a name I didn't know. Our parrot was good with picking new names or anything that sounded like a name, so when I heard that name, I suspected that someone had visited our house, and he must have heard someone call the name. When I asked my wife about it, she insisted that he must have gotten the name from the television, and that did not sit well with me. Mainly because when I tried to argue that my parrot couldn't pick the name from a movie, she flipped for the first time in a long while and walked out of me. The moment she walked out of me in anger, I suspected that something was going on. I thought someone must have visited our home, and my wife didn't want me to know about it, so I decided to find out. In the following days, I bought a small-sized camera and hid it in my parrot's cage to confirm my suspicion. Then the next day, I told my wife I was traveling to the nearby state to visit my mom, but I was crashing at a friend's house. That same evening, as I stayed in my friend's house to watch my house, I saw something that shattered my heart and destroyed our marriage. I watched as my wife came in with one of her organization's new interns, and they did it on our couch, right in front of the bird and in the camera. Before I found out my wife was cheating on me, I told my friends about my parrot and the strange male name it kept saying, but they said I was paranoid. My parrot might have heard the name from a movie, and my wife flipped and walked out of me because I was annoyed. It would be an understatement to say I was disappointed, shattered, and devastated. I could not believe that the same woman I tolerated her anger issues and stood by her on the days I should have been out there breathing fresh air was cheating on me with an intern. It felt like a bad dream I needed to wake up from. But sadly it was my harsh reality. About 2 days after I learned about my wife's infidelity, my broken state turned to anger, and I thought of ways to pay her back. Finally, I had something, and I knew destroying all her years of hard work and commitment to her organization would be a major hit for her. So I sent the video footage to her company, and I was sure they would take action. I returned home a week later because I wanted to cool off and put myself together. When I eventually got home, I met my wife at home. She had been fired by this time, and the intern had been dismissed. When I asked my wife why she wasn't at work, she said her company was downsizing, so they had to let her go. Immediately she said that. I started laughing and told her I knew why she was fired. She was confused and didn't understand what I meant. Before I went home, I had already contacted a divorce lawyer to start processing our divorce, so I told my wife I was behind the video sent to her organization, and at the snap of a finger, she flipped and started yelling at the top of her voice. She said she was glad she cheated on me because I was a weak man, and I didn't satisfy her in bed, so she had to make herself happy. What an excuse. When she said that, my anger level skyrocketed, and before she had the opportunity to start throwing things at me as usual, I pulled her with strength and threw her out of my house. She made a scene outside, and after she was tired of yelling, she took the few things I had thrown out and left. A few days later, she started calling my phone non-stop, and she sent multiple messages saying that she was a changed person and would never cheat on me again. I'd be stupid if I gave her another opportunity. We eventually divorced, and I have been living my best life since then. I never thought I'd say this, but I feel more at peace without my wife. It's almost like I've been let out of an invincible cage, and I feel so relieved. I do not miss my ex-wife, and I'm so glad things turned out that way, or else I might still be stuck in our marriage, hoping that she would evolve into the kind of woman I wanted. One thing I've learned the hard way is to never try and save people like my wife, because you will drown in the process of saving them. As for my precious parrot, I'm glad he helped me get out of that terrible marriage. Now none of my friends doubt my parrot anymore. OP. No one should ever be in a toxic or manipulative relationship. Sadly, your wife cheated on you even when you tolerated her excesses and stood by her. She manipulated you the whole time while you were blinded by love. Did she think calling you a weak man would get to you after she betrayed you that way? That's funny. Anyways, it's good that you have broken out of her chains of manipulation. Enjoy your life now, do what you love, and prioritize your peace of mind. Now let's get into our second story for today. I will use fake names for this post to keep my identity hidden. My ex-wife Taylor and I were married for only 2 years before our divorce. My wife and I met at a mutual friends party. We were both there with our different groups of friends, and we started a conversation and things took off from there. A week after we met at the party, we had our first date, and on our second date, I asked her to be my girlfriend and she said yes. We dated for a year and 9 months and married afterward. Most people would say our falling in love and marriage was fast, but I don't think that has anything to do with my wife cheating. Before Taylor and I married, I knew she was one of those women who loved to be in shape at all times. She loved yoga and was part of a yoga morning/evening class. I had no issue with Taylor staying fit or attending her yoga classes. I knew it was something she loved, and I even encouraged her to keep going to her classes even on the days she didn't feel like it. Taylor and I barely had any issues in the 2 years we were married. We respected each other and were careful with our words no matter how angry we were. Regarding finances, Taylor and I worked very hard and did our best to take care of the house, support our parents from time to time, and take care of other things. Taylor was already 3 months pregnant, So we had a year-plus-old son before we divorced, and his birth brought us so much joy. I always wanted to be a father, and finally having a son calling me daddy was a source of strength. I grew up without a dad, and I promised my son that I would do everything possible to give him a comfortable life, and that's why I did 2 jobs a day to keep things going for me. On her end, Taylor was a good mother to our son, and she took great care of him. Undoubtedly, we were a happy big family with many beautiful memories, but shortly after Taylor and I clocked 2 years of marriage, I found something that scattered everything we built. One day I was at home resting on a weekend. Saturdays were usually my day off, and I'd pick Saturdays to relax, help around at home, and most importantly spend time with our son. That Saturday Taylor had taken her son to grocery shopping, and I was all alone at home. There was nothing to do, so I became bored and decided to go through our family pictures on the tablet. The tablet was a shared gadget between my wife and me, and we usually left it at home. So to ease my boredom, I started looking at the pictures from when our son was in his mother's stomach down to when he was born till his current state. I was there savoring the moment when I noticed that my wife's cloud was connected to the tablet. By this time I was done looking at all our family pictures, and I thought it was a good idea to go through her photos, hoping that I'll stumble on some of our old dating photos. Immediately I accessed my wife's gallery. The first few pictures I saw were pictures of her half naked without a bra and other revealing and sensual pictures. Immediately I saw them, I was confused because my wife had not sent me those pictures, and seeing her nudes on her phone made me feel that something was wrong. Even while we dated, she wasn't the kind of woman that was comfortable with sending me her nudes, and I never asked for them. So I was surprised that she had those kinds of pictures on her phone. I know I trusted Taylor so much, but despite trusting her, the thoughts that she was actually sending those pictures to someone else kept coming to my head. I tried to find it off, but the harder I tried, the more difficult it was to resist. After trying to keep the thoughts away, I decided to do some digging, and I could access some of her messages through her cloud. Once I could do that, I found a couple of messages between her and her yoga trainer, and it insinuated that something was going on between them. So that evening when Taylor came home, I acted like everything was fine and we all had dinner together. That night after she slept, I went through her actual phone, and I was shocked to my bone marrow to see sensual WhatsApp messages between Taylor and her yoga trainer. From what I found out, Taylor and her yoga trainer started dating 1 year after we married, and I didn't smell a rat the whole time. Everything was still going on normally with her, and she still cared for me and our son like she did from the beginning, and that's why I didn't suspect anything. That night I badly wanted to wake her to explain, but I had to control my emotions. I took screenshots of their chats and erased every trace that I had touched her phone. 3 days after I had gathered everything, I sent them to her yoga facility, and her yoga trainer ended up getting suspended. Taylor also had to stop going there because he could not stand the shame and all the terrible things her colleague would say about her. To add salt to injury, I specifically sent her nudes and other sensual photos to a in her book club, whom I knew Taylor never liked. The lady was a blabbermouth, which was the main reason she and Taylor did not get along. I was sure the lady would do a great job in broadcasting and telling everyone in their book club about Taylor's infidelity, and that's what happened. She lost all her valuable friends, ruined her reputation, and stopped attending book club meetings. Meanwhile, while all of this happened, Taylor did not know I was the one behind it. She kept coming up with excuses why she wouldn't go to her yoga classes and her book club meetings. I knew she was lying, and I kept playing along with her. Eventually, when I couldn't keep up with the pretense, I confronted her and told her someone told me about her affair with her yoga trainer. When I said so, she started begging me immediately, and she claimed there was a mix-up somewhere, and told me she would never cheat on me. That was funny coming from someone who dated her yoga trainer for 1 year under my nose. When she assured me she could never cheat on me, I told her I didn't want our marriage anymore, because I knew the truth, and she started to cry. Before the confrontation, I had conducted a paternity test. My son and I were a match. She even started to abuse me that I was taking the words and gossip of strangers over her words. But I couldn't stand her pretense, so I kicked her out. Kicking Taylor out of my house in life was difficult, but I had to do it anyway. After a few weeks we divorced, and with the help of a good lawyer I got custody of our son. It's been 2 years since Taylor and I went our separate ways, and each time I remember it hurts me that she had no regard for our marriage or me. And she stopped solo to have an affair with her yoga trainer. I feel sorry for any other man that will end up with her because she's such a good actress. I wonder what women see in their yoga trainers that they do not see in their husbands. Because she thought she could eat her cake and have it. Your wife ended up losing you and the beautiful family she had. It's pathetic that she kept pretending not knowing you were the one who found out her secret and exposed her. You do not deserve a cheat and a liar as a life partner. You deserve better and you should settle with that. Congratulations on getting custody of your son. I know you will be a good dad. Forget about your wife and focus on the good and beautiful things around you. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also comment below with your thoughts.